Hello, all my microbiome Berean friends out there. Today we're going to do something a little bit different, hopefully a trend that we can continue. I've sent out a form that was to fill out testimonials. We're having some trouble with that form. I don't know if it's a incompatibility, but for the time being, if you want to write out your testimonials, it could be that I need to review those first just to make sure they're compliant, as in not having words like cure or treating conditions or things that the FDA would frown upon. So please go ahead and write up those testimonials, those results, those case studies, send those in. I'm going to review some today that I have, and I have 7 of them, and some of these I can tell you that they are actual microbiome lab regional managers, and you'll find that a lot of the employees and contract employees of microbiome labs are working for microbiome labs because they experience such life-changing results from using the products. So much so that they wanted to change their career in many cases and become microbiome representatives. One such person, I will tell you, he's had a severe autoimmune condition, rheumatoid arthritis. He was using a cane. He made statements such as he can understand how people can easily be addicted to painkillers and antidepressants when you have this type of condition. He started on the products and like many cases, became worse before he got better. And you'll see this, if you've been in practice very long, you'll see that this happens very often. But you can mitigate those type of responses, whether it's die-off or herximing or detoxification. There are some ways to prepare the body to handle detoxification better. I can tell you this particular person was in the restaurant business and was not a practitioner, did not have prior experience in detoxification, but the results were still astounding, turned his life around, and as I said, he now represents microbiome labs. Another autoimmune disease case, this time lupus, and she is a representative. She talks, that's part of her story when she's explaining to practitioners the dramatic change that it has made in her life to give her the energy and the ability to do a high-paced, demanding job, which most sales requires. Another representative, this particular individual tells the story about how she was attending her son's college graduation and had the unfortunate experience of having to wear Depends because of the possibility that she could have an accident. And for any person, this is humiliating, embarrassing. It interrupts your life. It damages your self-esteem. And very often, this is what these type of conditions do. And as the other 2 that I've mentioned, this particular individual started using microbiome products, and now this is part of her testimony. And what she explains to other practitioners that turned her life around, gave her the confidence that you don't have to live wondering where every public restroom is in every journey that you embark upon. So those are three of the representatives, like I said, that now work for microbiome labs. There are many others, and I'll cover some of those in future episodes. I did want to talk about some other conditions that some of my practitioners have talked to me about. And two of them, and I think the more severe the condition, of course, the more dramatic the turnaround and impact on an individual's life. So this is an example of ulcerative colitis. This particular person had the condition for years, and for many years, about a month out of each year would be spent in the hospital because of this condition. Starting the products, again, was very rocky, which many times it can be if an individual is not versed in how to mitigate, die off, detoxification, Herxheimer's, if they haven't been instructed in detoxification, diet, dilution, and neutralization of toxins, then they will struggle more. Then another example I have, this is actually the practitioner herself who had ulcerative colitis, and she has seen amazing results. It has had an amazing difference in her life, and her go-to for every one of her clients is starting with the microbiome lab products. We've had an example of diverticulitis. This particular patient also had a very rocky start, could not even tolerate a pinch of the Megaspore powder. Had to stop and start several times. And this is back in the days when Megaspore and vitamin K2 were the only two products that we had. So and now it has not had an episode since. So this is very important. And then I think, let's see, number 5 or number 6 example I have here is of a 4-year-old who was having 6 bowel movements a day. And you can imagine the impact this would have on a young family that wants to put their child into kindergarten. And if you've had children, you know that daycare workers want to do the least amount of attending as possible. They don't want to change diapers, especially in a 4-year-old's class. And, this child was looking at assisted care unless this condition could be turned around. And they started on the Megaspore product, had to back off, go with some of the 1 or 2 spore to work up to Megaspore, moved on to the prebiotic, and then onto the Megamucosa. They said in their testimonial that it was the entire total gut restoration program that made it possible for their 4-year-old, who's now 5, is in kindergarten and has 1 bowel movement a day at school, which is he's able to handle, and has turned their entire family around. In some cases like this, one of the parents usually has to make the career choice to stay at home. But in this case, they did not have to. And as many of you know, I or my husband did not have a particular condition that drove us into becoming representatives, but it seems as though we're going to have a testimonial at the end of, we'll be able to talk about how microbiome products and cancer, chemotherapy, and radiation adjunct protocols. So we'll report back to you on that. So, these are just very short I hope to get some more detailed testimonials in the future. And I would also like to have the practitioners explain them themselves. I think that's important to hear it, from the direct source. So if there's any volunteers, I'm happy to read them or go over them. But if you'd like to do them personally, please feel welcome to do that. I think it means much more. Then I wanted to cover a couple of other things. One of them is when you're faced with competitors or other probiotics that are coming onto the market, and people will send me emails. Have you heard of this? Have you seen this? What about, this formula? So I've got some questions that I think will be helpful for any formula that you're faced with, and what sets Microbiome Labs apart from other companies is that you want to look at the combination of strains and find out, from the company or the representative, what studies have they done to show that those strains at that dose, what they do in the human body. Also, do they have human clinical trials on the formula at this dose to know what the effects are? What does the formula do to the rest of the microbiome? How are they working among the commensal organisms? How does it impact the commensals or the native population? What does this formula do to the immune response? What responses are affected? And where's the clinical information on that? So this is where the science is now. It's no longer, the surveys of before and after. Do you feel better on probiotics? How do they affect one particular condition? The science has evolved to really understanding what the mechanisms are that these organisms perform. Are they colonizing or not colonizing? How are they getting along with the fingerprint microbiome, that are the native or the commensals there? Are they transient or not? Are they even making it to the intestinal tract? And the only way to really be able to answer these questions are to submit these probiotics to SHIME studies. And that is the synthetic gastrointestinal tract studies that let you know what is happening. So those are the type of questions that you want to ask, the representatives that are knocking on your door. It's beyond, what studies do you have? You have to look at what type of studies they're presenting. Are these representative of the gastrointestinal tract? There are other spore probiotic formulas that are hitting the market. Not all spores are the same. The technology, the intellectual property of putting a spore into the spore phase, that is, to the way they heat shock these organisms so that they protect themselves and stay in the spore phase so that they get through the gastrointestinal, gastric barriers, and then that they actually colonize and come out of the spore phase. This took 7 years of research. And when we put other spores through the SHIME studies, we find that only 30% of them are in the spore stage, and even less of those then come out of the spore stage once they're in the gastrointestinal tract. So, and then the whole topic of soil-based organisms. The bacillus spores that we use have been lumped into that category. That's incorrect. The soil is just a vector that the bacillus spores use and lay in waiting until a mammal, insect, or human then consumes them, and then they colonize in the ideal environment of a gastrointestinal tract. So there are other spore-based organisms that have been used, have not been well documented, not well studied, and can cancel out the effects of good spores or, the commensal type or the transient spores that are used by the human gastrointestinal tract or may even cause negative effects. So again, these are things that are only known once you submit these formulas to a SHIME study. So we really need to raise the bar, insist that these are the formulas, perform these studies so you really know what they're doing, and do no harm. That's really the bar that we have to insist that all of these other companies come to. Okay. And then kind of the final point I wanted to throw out there was just to put a feeler out there if there was any interest, if we were to talk about a mountain retreat, a conference in Idaho, and if this would appeal to Texans that wanted to get out of the heat in the summer, mid-July to the end of July. And there's some weekends there, July 11th, 18th, and August 1st, that we want to start talking about and look into the possibilities of doing some microbiome lectures and then having some time to enjoy the outdoors. In order to do this, it would be, kind of a feat of marketing. I would need to reach out to some practitioners that are not yet microbiome lab customers and, grow the business so that I can get some support from microbiome labs and be able to have a conference that covers new information, more, information in depth, really get into the weeds on mechanisms, and be succinct enough to have time left over, like I said, to enjoy the outdoors. The Northwest has a lot to offer, so think about that. Give me some feedback on that and let me know. Okay, so I'm going to open up the floor now and take some questions. Maybe we can explore some more testimonials. Let's see here. Okay, let's see. Take it off of mute. Unmute. Okay. Hey, Dr. Fasciano, how are you doing?
Doing good, Tracy.
Super. So I know you had trouble with that form as well, as did a couple of others. So I don't know if you wanted to perhaps discuss the one you were thinking of, the testimonial at this time, or if you want to write that down and we can talk about it in a future episode. It's up to you.
Okay, sounds good. I'll probably just write it down.
Okay.
I do have a testimonial now, just from me.
Super.
So back when I started Megaspore, it was last summer. When I started taking the Megaspore, I would have major die-off stuff. Extreme fatigue was the big one. Terrible digestion. Everything was watery and not coming out good.
Mm-hmm.
Then I eventually, after having stopped it, starting it, trying it again, stopping it, starting it again, trying it again, I decided to go backwards with Restore Floor. Once I started Restore Floor, I started about as you say, a pinch, and I started to have better quality stool, and it kept getting better and better. I was able to get to one whole pill a day, and right now I've been able to take one whole megaspore without any issues, and quality of stool is very much improved. I was sensitive to certain foods. I am able to eat more different foods that I wasn't able to eat before. And I think it all started back when I was in school. Um, I was I had the opportunity to dissect cadavers, but all the chemicals and everything and all the stress of school just really deteriorated my body. My digestion got bad during that time, and definitely is now building and repairing, and definite improvement since last summer. So it's been 6-7 months now.
Excellent. Excellent. And thank you for sharing that as well. I really appreciate it. Um, this isn't the first time I've heard how chiropractic school, dental school, and medical school did not adversely affect the students. So
Yes.
there's a podcast about Al Dannenberg. He's a periodontist who says that they, would go through the dental school and play with the mercury, roll it around their hands, throw it out on the floor, and then they had x-rays. Each student had their own x-ray machine that they were learning on, and it was all one big room with all these x-ray machines, and he feels like he was blasted with all of this. He's currently dealing with myeloma, and
Wow.
is convinced that it started at least because of all of these exposures. I've also had a medical doctor tell me, when she'd done different detoxification protocols, she could smell the formaldehyde actually leaving her body, because of all the cadaver dissections that they did. So
Yeah.
so if a doctor, once they go through the anxiety and mental stress of getting through the bookwork, then they have to deal with the physical issues. And I don't think many doctors realize that. So, many of us suffer more than others. But it may be just a matter of time before it catches up, because certainly when Ken and I go to the different trade shows around Texas, the majority of the practitioners at these trade shows are talking to us about their own health and their own digestive problems and gut problems and bowel problems. So this is a problem. And definitely the practitioners recognize this, and physician, heal thyself first, and then that experience can all the more help you help your patients. Okay.
I do have a question on one of the testimonials that you're talking about, the ulcerative colitis. How many years did it take to heal, or if they're still in the process?
Yeah. Now, the person, as I recall, had UC for 6 years, and it took them about 9 months to resolve, the issue.
Wow. That's quick, in my opinion.
Yeah. It kind of, that formula we use of, how many, years of serious symptoms should translate to at least 1 month of healing. So it's somewhere in the ballpark, and that seems to hold pretty close.
Wow. Okay, sounds good. And then I know one of the times you talked about diverticulitis, it took about 6 months to get to 1 megaspore a day, or was it 2 megaspore a day?
1.
One.
Yep.
Okay.
And that
And
was
then,
because we had no other tools. At that time, we had no HU58, Restore Flora, or IgG 2000, which now I believe would have cut that time down substantially to getting onto Megaspore.
cool. All right. I'm just trying to put some things together in terms of testimonial, sort of what we're doing
Mm-hmm.
for my patients, and saying, hey, this person, it took them this long. Hey, why don't we expect this much?
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. Okay, well, I think we can wrap it up today. If there are any follow-up questions, as you know, always can reach out. Happy to hear from you. And I'll go ahead and post this on YouTube. You can forward it to anybody you'd like to listen to it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Take care. Have a great week, rest of your week and weekend.
All right. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.